Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, welcome back to part 2 of our first look at a random map. We got off to a great start. We went out and connected Salina to Tucson. We kept it under the max length. We went straight up and connected to Amarillo. We started working on our connections to get 240,000 people into our network. So we added San Francisco, then we added Omaha, and just recently we added Rock Island. We passed that one. We also got our 33 trains running with a good profit. And a quick note on that one, anytime you see that kind of a thing, if you use a method similar to what we do here, you will never have a problem with that, never, because you're going to run a lot of trains and they're going to make money. Where you're going to run into a problem with that, and that's going to be a challenge for you, is if you try to do this, and forgive me for saying this, what I consider stupid idea of running 1 or 2 trains between these cities, thinking I want to run them full all the time. I don't want these trains running with 4 empty cars or less cars than they could have, or any of that kind of crap. If that's your attitude, you're going to have a hard time with the 33 profitable train lines. But if you run a bunch of trains, as we do here, you will never have a problem with that particular goal. So anyway, enough preaching. Sorry about that. So we also connected Salina, Tucson, and Amarillo, of course, when we ran that line up to Amarillo. So we're in great shape. And now we're looking at, we've got to get more of these. Sorry, I'm having, I had a little brain cramp there. We've got to get more of these rural industries connected to our network, because that's a task we have to do. And then we have to buy at least 18% of Beatrix so that we can get that task checked off in a good time frame. And these employees keep popping up. It just seemed like this one, as much as any playthrough of Railway Empire I've ever done, these employees just keep popping up. I just have to constantly be hiring new employees when I'd love to be worrying about something else. But anyway, you do what you got to do. All right, so we're looking at where can I find industries and hook them up. And where it gets difficult, there's 2 things. As if you saw part 1, you know that we've set this up. There's only 8 cities, and there's only a total of 20 industries on the entire map. So that in itself is a problem, because we have to have 11 industries hooked up to our network, and there's only 20. So we have to have a lot of them, and our competitors have grabbed pretty much all of them, which means that, which is okay, we can grab them too. The problem is that you got their track all over the place, and now you get this mess. So it does become a bit of an issue to try to get them all connected. So it more challenging than you might think. No big deal, of course, but more challenging than you might think. So now I'm just looking around. I'm thinking about these things. I want to connect them. I'm also thinking about when I can, buying them first. But they turn out to be pretty expensive, because a lot of them that I'm buying, of course, keep in mind, our competitors have hooked them up. Now here's a couple I found, milk and fruit, that haven't been, milk and sugar, excuse me, that haven't been hooked up by the opponents, which is great. But they are so close to a city, to a big city, that they're already leveled up a bit from the private owner, which makes them expensive. So it's hard to buy them right now. But again, we'll worry about buying them in wholesale, kind of really buying in bulk, so to speak, later on, after we get get to that beautiful point where, money's not the problem. This particular line is just a big giant bridge, but it really couldn't be helped because of the other tracks that we had to go over to get to it. And I'm never happy building giant bridges like that, but it's short and it's what needed to be done at that particular point. So now we've got sugar hooked up. We're running it into Omaha. We'll make money shipping it, and it's one more off our little list. And we barely have room for a supply tower. This line is like 90% bridge. So we're going to keep looking for rural businesses that we can buy. We're at 4 out of 11 right now. It's in April of 1833. And so we've got to get a move on that, and we've got to get a move on buying some of Beatrix. And of course, we need to own a bunch of industries, and we'd love to, and then they're usually pretty one trick you can use. There's two good tricks for if you have to buy a lot of industries. One, when there's any of those sales, where they pop up and say this business is not profitable, it's up for sale, buy it. They're cheap. Two, look for an industry that got placed in a city and it doesn't belong there, meaning that it can't get the raw material that it needs in order to make a profit. So find a business that isn't making money, then buy it, and you'll get a good price on that. And that's a great way to buy them. And then you can buy them, destroy them, put in what you want, or find a way to get the raw material to that business so that they can flourish. That's two. Number three is, buying these rural businesses. They tend to be cheaper, and the AI competitors tend to not bother you. They tend to not try to outbid you on them. They will upon occasion, but it's rare. And as I said, they tend to be cheaper. However, if you get in a situation like this where there's only 20 of them, and the ones that are close to any city at all are going to be making a profit, which means that they're probably going to get leveled up by the private owner, and which means that they're going to be more expensive, right? So it's not like you can go out on these big maps that we've done in other videos where we would go buy some logging camp in the middle of some mountain, up on a mountain in the middle of a forest, miles from anything, for peanuts. It's super cheap. We don't have that opportunity here. There's not going to be any of those. There's no low-hanging fruit, and that was all part of the plan. We wanted this to be challenging, and sure enough, it is. It's got Trainiac mode with the high-price stations. It's got very few industries we can buy or that are cheap, very few that we can even use. So we're going out and grabbing them. Here we're picking up wheat and running that into a city on a direct line, and we'll just keep doing this and trying to get those 11 industries hooked up. And at the same time, we're really trying to save to buy Beatrix. That's really our next goal, is to buy Beatrix, but didn't want to stop and just sit there and try to accumulate cash, because rarely is that a good idea. It's a better idea in this game, if you need cash, to keep growing your company and keep making more money. Of course, as you keep spending, there is a point there where you have to stop and accumulate some cash, because particularly in this deal with these stations getting so expensive, every time we build one, it's costing us a lot of money. But just the same, we want to keep growing. We don't want to just stop and wait while we accumulate cash to buy Beatrix. We do want to keep growing, but we have to kind of watch that and make a decision. At what point do we stop this growth and just save for a while to buy her out? So here I've got another one where my people aren't getting along, so I decided, nope, I can't keep this guy. He's not going to work. And when I say another, on part one, we had the same circumstance come up. Maybe you saw that, maybe you didn't. Now here's a milk industry that we can hook up. Again, make some money, but our little small train station is not too bad. $90-some thousand for that one. Not bad. Practically giving them away, aren't they? So we're going to run a simple little milk line down here to Omaha. And again, repeating kind of the theme of what I said in part one about the random map. Thing I really like about it from a replay perspective is that it is different. You can set these parameters how you want them, and you're going to get a different set of challenges, and that means that you can't just sit there and apply our method. Like, you can't just do rapid expansion, build out to 5 cities, do your wheat and cattle lines, build a pass-through warehouse. You're going to have a very hard time if you just follow that blindly without really thinking about your objectives and being able to modify your strategy to match what you want to do. And of course, you have to do that all the time on any map, in any scenario. You have to be flexible enough. But I think on these random maps, you're going to really get a good hit of that, because you can set up, like this is an extreme example, 8 cities and 20 industries. This is an extreme that we're trying to do here. So I believe her value's actually gone down a little bit here lately. I mean, if this map's tough on me, it's tough on the AI folks as well. So now we're trying to see what would it cost us to actually buy enough to have, to make it. And here's one where I'm saying, okay, here's a salt mine. Nobody needs salt yet, but I need eventually to own 21 businesses. So I go ahead and buy that salt mine. But the good news is I've got the ability to open bonds now. So I'm going to grab myself a couple $1 million. And now we can go out and say, okay, what's Beatrix going to cost us? And it turns out that we can buy about 60% of her. Boom, there we go. So now typically you want to buy one big bite. You want to buy 100% in one swoop and be done with it. And it's much easier to do that way, and you'll see it later as we, you can imagine what's going to happen to our other 2 competitors eventually. But because of that 18% goal, I wanted to go ahead and get that done. So we bought a big chunk of Beatrix for a couple $1 million. We own 60% of her now, and we will, and we got our task completed, and that was the main thing. That's what drove that behavior. So now we want these cities to keep growing. And one reason we want San Francisco to grow is because we just bought that salt mine, and they don't need salt until 90,000. So we want San Francisco to grow. They've hit that 60,000. That museum is what kind of puts you over the edge to help you grow above 60,000. And so we put that museum in so that they can grow and eventually consume salt and help us recoup the money that we spent on that salt mine up there. We don't have that logs connected anywhere in our network, so we're going to make sure we do. We put it connected to one. And here's where I do borrow a city-to-city line and just go ahead and run a log train in on that line between Tucson and Salina. And I don't think I mentioned this on any video I put out there, but I saw where they have in their test release, the developers have test release, which has a couple of cool things in it. It'll have the ability to build crossing lines. So you can build a line going east to west and a line going north to south, and they can cross each other without a bridge or a tunnel. In other words, they can just literally intersect, and you can put signals around them, and trains will go through them as appropriate based on the signals, but they can cross one another without the expense or the disruption or the whatever you want to call it of putting in a bridge or a tunnel. So that'll be cool. And they'll also have kind of like you might think of as an X crossing, or I've heard them called diamond crossings, but like coming out of a station where you know how you build, if you have 2 tracks, if you're using 2 platforms in a double track, you have to go from the left one to the right one, and the right one back to the left one. Well, this will just allow you to put like a little X in there so that the lines can cross one another, and that'll be I think more realistic to how it really works. Certainly in other games I've played that had trains in them, that's how it works. So that'll be nice when they get that out there for us as well. That shouldn't be too long. But for now, we'll stick with building the way we do it now. So here we're going to hook in fruit into Amarillo. And we really do want Amarillo to grow. In fact, at this point I had checked it. I just want to make sure that Amarillo keeps growing. We want Amarillo to be large. We want to put an attraction in Amarillo because that'll increase the passenger flow from Salina. And also, the large city just attracts more passengers, period. More people want to go there. And so of course we have the goal of connecting these rural industries anyway. We have to connect 11 of them. So obviously running fruit up there to Amarillo just makes perfect sense. We need to get our 11 industries, rural industries, connected. We own the salt mine. We know that San Francisco is not quite big enough to take the salt yet, but we're going to go ahead and make the connection. That'll help us get to our objective. And we're even going to put a train on it and get it ready to go. And then as soon as San Francisco hits 90,000 population and has some demand, that train will load up and take off and start making money for us. So a bit of a waste, but I knew that, I know myself well enough that if I didn't come back, if I didn't put that train on there and intended to come back and put it on, it would never happen. So I'd rather waste some money having that train sit there idle for a while than to just forget it altogether. And I definitely wanted the connection because we need the 11 connections. So that was kind of the thinking, whether good or bad. That was the thinking. I won't qualify it as good or bad. It's just thinking on that particular move here where we're putting this line in for salt, which we know isn't going to run yet. So if you notice, it doesn't load. It just sits there. That was expected, and it will load eventually when demand is there. So we're looking pretty good. We're still fighting our way through these 11. You would think connecting 11 would be super easy, but this was actually a little bit of a struggle. And I really keep going back and forth. One of the reasons you see me kind of coming back out and looking around is I'm contemplating, would it be better to buy a competitor that has some of the connections already and buy them out? But I decide to go ahead and build them because I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to take a chance. I keep wanting to buy these. Here we go. I wanted to buy the vegetable farms because I know I need them both. And this is relatively expensive for a vegetable farm and not horrible. The one down south is already like $1.5 million or more. So it's going to really cost us. And you can see our production there, see how low that is. And we've got to get to 14.4. And if I do say so myself, I come up with a semi-clever way of making that happen. You'll see that later. I think I teased you with that in the last one too. Now here I want to build a line that's across that track to go down to Amarillo. And so a small station won't quite reach across the track, but a regular station will. So we can put a a regular size station there, and it will have its catchment area will be big enough to pick up those vegetables and load them up. But of course, in this Trainiac mode, it's going to be an expensive proposition. And finally, we get to hire a third staff who doesn't fight with our accountant. Our accountant must be hard to get along with. And sorry if you haven't seen the other part. That was we've had two other people that we've tried to hire, and they didn't get along with the accountant, and they kept the accountant both times. So now we've got to run our line down and jump over the competitor's track, which again is sort of a, wouldn't you be better off just buying the competitor? There really is a point there where you are. And I don't know how many times I've played where I needed to expand, and I just decided the easiest way to expand was just buy the competitor. And this one, not quite there. Don't quite have the kind of money, the kind of income that would allow you to do that. And I mean, we're still early in the game. I mean, this is end of 1833, so we've only been at this for 4 years. So this is not, it's not like we've been playing a dozen years or more. But still, we've got another connection. We've got the veggies coming in to give us another rural station, and it sets us up for down the road when we have to get that 14.4 production of veggies going. Now this particular connection was interesting because I thought I'd be clever and not duplicate the bridge, and you saw that I cut it off and made my connection up above the bridge. But now I'm thinking about it and thinking, you know, to really make it work well, I'd like to have an entry lane and an exit lane to get off there so that the merge is good and we don't slow up any other traffic or anything else. So I decided to bite the bullet, go ahead and double track the bridge and come down here and build what I would think of as a more traditional merge into this line that's coming down. I believe it's the cattle line coming down into Amarillo. So now we're just going to make sure that we got our signals right and make sure that the merge is going to work correctly, and then we'll set up, run some veggies into Amarillo. So you can see that small production on a level 1 vegetable farm, 0.8. And we need 14.4, so you can do the math. So now I'm looking to see what's it going to cost me to buy out somebody. All right, we're at 10 out of 11 connections. These guys are still pretty expensive, so let's see, what are we going to do here? And again, this is yeah, here we go. We actually own, do we own that logging? No, we don't. But we are going to connect it. We're going to make the connection. That'll give us our 11th connection and get that task completed. And we can run it in. We've got a busy line coming in here. We've got cattle and veggies coming in there, and they merged. It's a short line with a merger going on. So now want to do yet another merger, and we've got enough space. We can do it. We can merge just past it. So a lot going on in that little line. You got three double track lines coming together there in a small space, but it all works because of course the cattle line doesn't need any mergers. It is the line. The veggies we set up with that bridge coming in, and now we go down below it and we set up our logs, and sure enough, that gives us another task complete. We've got our 11 rural industries hooked into our network. This is another one, well, I say another one, but this is something that if, let's call this a critique of my play, I would have done this faster. Really should have done this faster. Probably, as I said, you have to be flexible and not be stuck in your method, but at the same time, should have followed the method a little bit more and done a little more connections here. Now, I see a market crier just popped up, and I can't recall exactly if I remembered or not, but I sure hope I grabbed it because we want to do market criers and emphasize passengers every chance we can get. I think I got it, but we'll see. Okay, because of that transportation goal, Amarillo has now hit that 60,000. We're going to put an attraction in Amarillo. That's going to increase passenger flow to Amarillo by 20%. And the one line we have, of course, is from Salina, and that line is going to get a 20% bump in its traffic. So now we're down to the traffic, the veggies, and owning 21 businesses. So we're looking really good at this point. At this point, we're looking actually great because the passenger traffic will happen. It's just a matter of time. Is it going to happen fast enough? And it looks like it is, frankly, but we'll see. And owning the businesses is a matter of spending money, which we're starting to make at a good clip. If you'll notice, every time we go off and do something for a minute, we look back and we've got several $100,000. There's that market crier. So here we go. We're going to market criers are basically advertising. So we're going to advertise comfort, which means that we'll get a bump on our passenger flow. So again, that's Salina to Amarillo line. We'll get a nice bump and get more traffic on it. And all of our lines will get a bump, but that's the main one for us, for our purposes. So we're looking great here. All we have to do now is wait for that traffic to finish, all those passengers. We need to buy up to 21 businesses. So here's an example. Here's one. There's a weaving industry in Rock Island. Just bought it. I bought it even though, it's almost like sight unseen. There's no cotton down there anywhere nearby. There's some nice cattle we could use, but there's no cotton on this map anywhere nearby. And there's cotton up there near San Francisco, as we know, but that's not going to help us. Well, it could if we wanted to run a really big, long line. But the other thing, and this is, again, kind of my sloppiness, so shame on me, but once I got the objectives, I don't really do a good job of optimizing my company. So I don't treat it like a company. I treat it like a game where I'm trying to win the objectives. A better player, and there are many of you out there, would probably run the line, make sure he had profit, make sure he got the right business, make sure he's optimizing each of these lines. He'd go back and run this thing on a very slow speed and look at each of these lines to see if he's running the right number of trains between each city, between each of the freight lines, all that stuff. I know to do that, and I know how to do that, and in fact I've been trying to show everybody else how to do that, but I don't necessarily do it myself, so shame on me. But again, I'm more about solving the puzzle, figuring out how do I get this done, what strategy do I need to do to meet all my objectives, and once all my objectives are done, I'm pretty much, I'm done. I'm done. But that's just, it's just the way I am. So now I'm trying to trying to straighten out a couple of these employees. I've got wanted to have my, as we've said before, we want to have our engineers, stokers, and you want engineers and stokers on your long lines, first of all. And in this particular model, the way we've got it, we want them on our city-to-city lines. We certainly want the conductors on city-to-city where the mail is. That's, of course, where we want our conductors and mail and passengers. And then we want our security guards on our little short freight lines that take resources straight into a city, because they get paid and they run very often. You get a lot of bang for the buck. So anyway, I'm trying to get all those balanced out and make the right assignments with them. And now it's time to say goodbye to Beatrix. So we bought her out. Now we're just deciding, are we going to keep her stuff or throw it away? Yeah, and I had to go back and double check which one she was. She's the orange up here to the north. So we're looking it over and saying, we've got a connection to a couple more cities. That would be nice. Let's keep what she's got. But then again, do I do a good job with it? No, I don't. Shame on me, but I do a little bit with it. I clean it up a little bit, but I don't do nearly enough because, again, we're almost done at this point. Not to let the cat out of the bag, but I mean, you can see the writing on the wall. We're practically there. We're making a lot of money. We own a lot of businesses. Some of them are just sitting there, frankly, rotting. But some of them are making us good money. So we have merged with Beatrix. All those oranges have turned to blue, and we own all this stuff up here to the north. And we can look at that to see what kind of cleanup we might want to do. It'd obviously be nice to have a line. Actually, Amarillo to Cheyenne up there to the far north would be a great line, because that would actually increase our Salina to Amarillo traffic, because people wanting to go further north would be able to go to Amarillo and then transfer up to Cheyenne. Same thing with this city. I think it's Raton. I think it's called, over to the northeast. We would want to have a line up there, which Beatrix already built for us. It's a question of whether or not we're going to take the time to actually take advantage of it. Plus, we've got this. This is the one thing I always hate. I got 38 potential employees to deal with now, so we got to do the dance of the employees and get all those people signed up. So how are we looking? We're about 2,600 passengers, so we're in pretty good shape. We're only in our 5th year. The goal is not till, I think, like 1846, I believe, is the goal for having all those passengers. So that would be 16 years out. We would want to finish by like 1838-ish to make sure that we hit our number. So to my credit, I do start doing a little bit of cleanup. And this is what I think I was talked about in the other video about when you buy a competitor now, particularly in this Trainiac game level, where the stations are so expensive, you want to keep their stations. They build stations, they typically put maintenance on those stations, so you get a station with maintenance. And then if you just build some double tracks, you take their existing track, double them up in the right places, clean them up a little bit, delete the ones that are offending you, so to speak. You can set up some fairly inexpensive lines to do some good profitable runs for you. So this one's going to be from Amarillo to Cheyenne, and as I already said, it will help us. It'll be a profitable line. Plus, it will give us hopefully some increase in our Salina to Amarillo line, which is the long pole in the tent for us in terms of hitting all of our objectives. So now at this point, I've tried to be a good boy and keep this running, because I know some of you don't like it when I do fast forward. But at this point, what's going to happen is, of course, all right. I just talked myself into it. We'll keep going. We'll keep going. Golly, I know some of you like to watch these, and we'll just keep going. I may not have a lot to say, but it's debatable whether I have anything worthwhile to say at any point. But right now, I probably will have even less to say. But we'll just keep going with this. We'll keep hiring them. We'll do the dance of the employees here. We're going to build out trains. We're going to. This is the line to Cheyenne. We're going to grab these employees that are out there and try to build some nice profitable trains. So this will instantly become a really good line for us because of all these employees. So we're going to get all these bonuses stacked up here. It's going to be sweet. Ooh, that's going to be a really good one right there. 3 greens, 3 people that like one another, and they're going to boost each other's bonuses and really make us some money. The employees are a complete pain to have to go through this, and they are worth every bit of it. If you go back and look at your lines and you look at, say, the Salina to Amarillo, and you compare a train that's got 3 of these employees on it versus one that does not, you will find at least twice as much money. I would guess twice to 3, sometimes 3 times more money that you're making from that extra train. And now some of it's just the luck of the draw in terms of the loads that they get, but it's really worth it to have these employees. They cost you money. You have to pay them, ongoing. You have to pay a hiring fee, and you have to pay ongoing, and then you have to, to me, where you have to pay is doing all this stuff. In fact, right here, I'm just going to go out and mass hire these people, leave them in the employment office because I don't want to lose them, and it takes a long time to get them all set up. So I want to hire them all, and now I'm looking to do, is this station master any better? He's not as good as the one I have, so I don't want him. I don't need a mediator because I don't plan on any auctions right away. So I hired all those train personnel, and they're just going to wait for assignment now. And now I can go through the process of finding trains that have openings for them so that I can get them all out there helping us make more money. And there I found one where I goofed up and put an engineer and I guess it was a conductor on a freight line, and you can tell by the name it wasn't 2 cities connected, it was some farm to a city. So I took them off, and now we can go back and do the reassignments and get these people on actual city-to-city lines. Assuming I can find one. And one of the reasons that our economy actually is pretty strong right now, and it is, by the way, our economy right now is pretty strong, and it's going to get stronger. But these employees have, and I know I've said this before, but these employees have a ton to do with that because we've got them on many of our lines. You can see here as I'm going through, almost struggling to find a place to put them. And that, again, by the way, is another way you have to think about your competitor as a resource. Your competition is not a problem for you. He is a resource because that competitor is hiring people, and when you you're going to buy him, you're going to do it, and when you do, there's all those people that are now your employees, and you can really you can. I don't know. I haven't done any actual analysis of this, and I'm not going to because it would be very boring and take a long time, but my guess is that you could almost pay for the purchase of a company through the gain you get in the increase of your employees, particularly if they stayed with you for a long enough period of time. Well, for a long enough period of time, of course they would do it. But even over the course of the game, you can almost pay for what you paid for that company in the gain you get, getting all these nice bonuses from all these employees that you're grabbing from your competitor. So now I've actually gotten to the point where I have no place to put these people. I'm actually putting security guards on the city-to-city lines on the so that the times they happen to do have freight on the train, they can get a bonus for it. And in the meantime, they got something to do. And then later on, if we, open up more lines out to our farms and what have you, then we'll move them over there. Plus, occasionally you'll get one that gives you the little green arrow, the kind of the bonus, and he just makes someone else's bonus better. And in that case, it's worthwhile to have him, even if you don't haul any freight. So if you're paying attention, you know that when I start paying off the bonds, that means another big purchase is on its way. And I'm looking at buying out Doc. And Doc is up there. What's he doing up there? Doc did not have a great run. He got kind of cut off by us and by Beatrix. That's why he's so cheap. But he's actually up there in Raton, but he doesn't have much. So we're going to buy him out. There we go. And let's see, and we're going to liquidate him. We're just going to say goodbye to Doc. So we cleaned up. We cleaned up the mess up there and got rid of all Doc's lines and stuff. So we got a little more room to operate up there. And picked up. See, he only had 10 employees. There's a good indicator of how weak he was. And he's the one who kind of got stuck. And the way it worked out, Doc and Beatrix both started to the north of us. Then there was kind of us, and then there was Don Lorenzo. Now, Don Lorenzo is much stronger because he had better cities with better resources down here, kind of in the heartland to play with. And we did too, frankly. But Beatrix did me okay, but she kind of cut off Doc, and he didn't do anything. So Doc was a pretty slim pickings for him. He was easy to buy out. And then bought him more as just getting rid of a nuisance kind of a thing. So now we got to do something with his employees. And see, I'm putting security guards on city-to-city lines at this point because I just don't have any other place to put them. And again, now here's a trade-off between these two chief engineers. I decided to just stick with what we have. And here's a beauty, another market crier. So go out there and advertise how comfortable our wonderful trains are. Now, the other thing, by the way, I haven't mentioned it, but the other thing I am thinking about here is I want to get the research out to get better trains, obviously, for that Salina to Amarillo line. So I want to get express train. Particularly, there's one called the Reindeer, which is kind of the first express specialty train. It's the first train that's an express train versus a mixed train in these early years. And that makes it worth having because it is faster and it gets a very high passenger rating. So it's going to be popular. They're going to get more traffic. It's going to move faster and make you more money. Again, the money's not a problem at this point. But the traffic is. So here's one where we bought out a bad industry. There was a tool maker in there who couldn't get anything he needed, and it was worthless. But we said, you know what? We're getting logs in there, so let's buy him out and then replace him with a sawmill. So now we've got a profitable business in there. It's going to make something that San Francisco and Salina can use. It'll help both cities grow. It'll make money for us, and good deal. And you can see here, Don Lorenzo did all right. I mean, he grew Omaha pretty well. He's participating in San Francisco. He's, you know, hats off, Don Lorenzo. You did all right. You will soon belong to us, but just the same, you did all right. Now you can see how expensive that veggies are, but again, at this point, we kind of have a really good profit engine going, so we can afford to buy that vegetable garden, that vegetable farm, excuse me, when the time comes. And I'm just double checking here. I'm just saying, are there any other vegetable farms anywhere on this map? And just to make sure, and there are not. So we've still got our weaving industry down there in Rock Island that we bought that on sale that is kind of worthless. So you know what? Let's fix that. We can put a meat industry in Rock Island, and even if that meat does or doesn't help us in terms of going to another place, it can still feed Rock Island. And we can turn that losing proposition into a money-making proposition. Now we got a potential accountant, and there's another trade-off. We decide we like the one we have. Still got our market crier going, so everything's cool there. And here's where I'm really starting to think, looking ahead to say, okay, what else do I want? Now these cars are useful again. I'm not big on the cars. Would like to get those express trains because that's an increase in the number of passengers. But spoiler alert, we don't get there. We don't quite make it that far in research. But I am looking to see, is there anything else out there that's going to help us with our passengers, because that's our big thing, of course. And I'm also thinking about the trains. And at first I was thinking I'd love to get to the Philadelphia because that's, you know, that's the beginning of the 1850s trains, and that's a really nice locomotive. But then I realized that reindeer is actually better. That's even more what we want because it's faster and it's designed for express. We'll go there eventually with our research. And this vegetable farm is just, wow, is it expensive. And here comes another market crier. We've already got one going, but that's okay. We're just going to start another one. So here comes some more ads about the comfort and wonder of riding the rails on Attican Enterprises. All right, so let's stop right here. We've gotten everything done except for owning our 21 industries, and we're off to a great start on that. Getting our vegetable production up to 14.4, and we will cover that in the next part, which will be the final part on this playthrough, and show you the kind of the interesting way we got that done. And then the third and final thing, the long pole in the tent, those over 9,000 passengers from Salina to Amarillo. But we started that very early, and we're running at a good pace on that. So we'll pick this back up in part 3 and finish it off in our next video. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.